One of my younger friends just bought their first PC after living their whole lives up to that point being a console gamer, and I couldn't be more happier for them. If you ask me, building or buying your first PC is like awakening your third eye. Once you do it, it's like you're opened up to an entire new dimension of life. A life full of RGB rainbows, vision in 4K ray tracing, and a black market full of internet pirates. I just described heaven to you. But back to my little story time. For a few days, I've been helping my friend, learn the basics of PC gaming, like what to install, what not to install, and something that I had to explain to him that was, kind of funny in my own mind was what the hell a DRM service is, of all things to explain. You see, one of the only games that they bought right now was the new Jedi Survivor game that dropped a few months ago. Pretty good game, good story, kinda interesting choice for your first PC game, but hey, I didn't judge. And of course, like many of you know, the install of this game on PC requires the install of the controversial Denuvo DRM app, which has to run in the background of the game each time that you decide to play it. Now, again, my buddy is a beginner in the whole PC sphere of things, so explaining this to them felt like I was passing down ancient folklore on some sort of gaming boogeyman. Like, don't ask questions, just hate them because we've all hated them since the beginning of time, Grasshopper. But the situation just made me realize that more and more people are starting to be more open-minded to the idea of PC gaming, which is dope to see. I mean, consoles are already charging a fortune just to play on their platform, so you might as well just save up that money and buy something even nicer for yourself. And with the ever-growing influx of new PC gamers, like I did with my friend the other day, I feel like I should bestow this knowledge on DRM to anyone that doesn't already have it and explain why it gets so shitted on in the gaming community and if it really deserves all the hate that it receives. So, with that, hopefully after this video, you'll be able to determine whether DRM is actually that bad. So what even is DRM? Because if you don't know what this acronym stands for, you'd probably be thinking I'm describing a rogue medical term or some shit. Unfortunately, I'm not, because DRM is short for Digital Rights Management and is technology used to make sure that copyrighted stuff is controlled and used in whatever way that the holders intend them to. If that sounds like something that could extend beyond just gaming, well, that's because it is. In fact, DRM wasn't even originally made for gaming. There's DRM in things like music, books, regular apps. Anything that can be controlled behind a screen can have its own form of DRM. It's ugly. But examples of DRM in the gaming form is like the program I mentioned earlier, being Denuvo, as this app constantly runs in the background and verifies your game files to make sure you have a legit copy of said game and not doing any, funny business. Denuvo isn't the only DRM for games that does this though. There's plenty of other services that do a similar thing and share a similar amount of hate. The first one that usually comes to mind for most people though is just usually Denuvo. So why exactly is that? What about Denuvo and pretty much every DRM service out there pisses people off to the point where just speaking its name is enough to start riots in the middle of a busy street? Well, like I said before, most DRM require you to run the service in the background anytime you play the game. That might not sound so bad for the majority of modern PC hardware, but it can eat heavily into CPU usage if you have a lower tier build, causing things like lag, slower loading times, or even things like stuttering, not something that you'd want to see. There's hella videos on YouTube comparing DRM and non-DRM performance on games, so if you feel like researching, you'll be able to see that this gameplay halting feature is indeed a real thing for some players. But hypothetically, let's just say you have the beefiest of computer builds. Let's say you got a PC with the latest graphic cards, a terabyte of RAM installed, and a CPU that can outperform a human nervous system. Like, you've got performance that doesn't even question. Even in that case, DRM could still impact you in a way that hinders your gameplay in a different way that I'd argue is even worse than a little drop of frame rate. You see, with DRM always sending signals to verify the game that you're playing, that obviously is going to require an internet connection. We're already in dark times where games themselves require internet for even single player titles, so with this DRM adding an extra layer of needing a connection, you can obviously see why people get triggered off just the thought of DRM. Like, who's going to want to deal with trying to have a late night game of Mortal Kombat's arcade mode just to be bombarded with a connection error because they didn't pay the spectrum bill. I mean, talk about a vibe kill. Luckily, games like Jedi Survivor only require the DRM to be connected to the internet once before you can enjoy the game offline, but as we turn more into a culture that depends on the internet and shrink our attention span with things like TikTok, nobody can really say how long we have until features like that are completely phased out, and we gotta start relying on the DRM more heavily than before. And lastly, of course, as its main purpose implies, DRM gets in the way of the precious art of internet piracy. This added layer of protection makes getting these programs illegally a little more hard, but really only for a short amount of time, because I doubt there's much on the internet that you couldn't pirate. Starfield isn't even officially out yet, and it was cracked like 3 days ago. These people move fast as shit. So all in all, DRM is as bad as they say it is. Not in the sense that it being included automatically means that you're not going to be able to play your game, but you'll instead have restrictions that at any point could mean loss of access to your game if something goes wrong. It's an extra headache that nobody wants to deal with, and honestly a pretty archaic method of protecting against, like piracy and all that. So hopefully, as time goes on, DRM can get phased out. But of course, we'll just have to wait and see what the future holds for DRM. So what do you guys think about DRM, man? Feel free to leave a comment down below. And as always, leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys in the next one.